Okay, ready for another deep dive? Today we're getting into some really essential teachings about rebirth in the Pure Land. These come from a lecture series explaining Master Ouyi's commentary on the Amitabha Sutra.
Right.
And it's less about just academic analysis, more like, practical guidance from masters for anyone serious about their spiritual path.
Exactly. And our mission today, really, is to zero in on the core stuff, what you actually need, the practices, and the profound benefits of aiming for the Western Pure Land, according to these teachings.
And why is this so crucial?
Because the source puts it starkly.
Yeah.
It's about the biggest thing in life, birth and death, how we navigate that.
Okay, and there's this phrase that keeps coming up in the source material. Difficult to believe, but easy to practice. That sounds intriguing.
It really is.
So we're going to dig into why it might be hard to believe, what true faith and vows really mean, beyond just saying the words.
Yeah, beyond formality.
And how even simple practices, apparently, can lead to pretty extraordinary results based on these teachings.
All right, let's unpack it. First off, why is the Pure Land presented as such a big deal, such a desirable goal? Well, the fundamental reason given in these teachings is that Amitabha's Pure Land is seen as the ideal place for spiritual growth, like the perfect environment.
Not just like a nice afterlife.
No, much more than that. It's where, your deepest spiritual goals, like enlightenment, can actually be achieved. It's perfectly set up for it.
You mentioned even very advanced practitioners are interested.
That's a key point the source makes.
Yeah.
Great bodhisattvas beings way, way further along the path than us. They actively want to go there. That really tells you something about its significance, its effectiveness for practice.
Okay, so what's the flip side? Our current world, the Saha world as it's called, what's the warning about staying here?
Yeah, there's a pretty sobering message there. For ordinary beings, people like us who haven't completely dealt with our core issues, greed, anger, ignorance, all that.
The afflictions.
Right, the afflictions. The teachings say, flat out, if you stay here, you can't escape the cycle of rebirth, samsara, in this lifetime. Not through the usual methods anyway. It's presented as incredibly difficult without first getting rid of those deep-rooted patterns.
And if you don't get rid of them, is there a downside, a risk?
Oh, yes, a big one. The commentary really stresses this. If your virtuous conduct isn't genuinely strong, like really living the 5 precepts, the 10 virtues, and not just superficially.
Not just ticking boxes.
Exactly. There's a real danger of falling into the lower realms. The source even puts a number on it, sort of, suggesting if your virtue isn't consistently high, maybe like 80% solid, the chances of falling are, much higher.
Wow, 80%, that's a high bar. And it sounds like the source is also critical of practice that's just kind of external, not truly felt inside.
Yes, very critical of superficiality. And taking refuge, getting precepts, formally important, sure. But the teachings warn against just doing the outward stuff without real inner commitment.
Like going through the motions.
Precisely. There's this vivid example. Someone might take refuge with teacher after teacher, loads of ceremonies. But if they don't truly rely on the Dharma itself, the actual teachings in the scriptures, not just the person.
Relying on the teaching, not the person.
Exactly that. If they don't do that, they might not actually get the protection that's talked about.
So it all comes down to what's really going on inside, not the outward show.
Completely.
Yeah.
That's why you see the contrast drawn between, say, someone very learned but maybe not fully sincere, versus someone perhaps uneducated but deeply honest who does achieve rebirth.
Ah, like that story about the old woman.
Right, the virtuous old woman. No status, no wealth here, but her inner virtue, her read, was so real that apparently spiritual beings in the underworld recognized it, respected her, invited her to their Dharma assembly. It just hammers home that point.
Yeah.
True spiritual worth comes from inner cultivation, not your job title or bank balance.
Okay, so given how tough things are here and the need for inner reality, how do you achieve rebirth in the Pure Land, according to these teachings? The source says it's not by small roots of goodness, blessings, or causal connections. That sounds weird, like you don't need good deeds.
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive at first, but Master Ouyi explains what not small means here. Good roots isn't just general niceness. It's the specific ability to believe and understand this particular teaching about Pure Land rebirth. It's tied to wisdom.
Okay, so belief and understanding. What about blessings?
Blessings here means the sincere willingness and the firm decision, the vow to be reborn there, and having the energy, the drive to do the practice, which is reciting the Buddha's name.
Got it. Vow and practice. And the last one, Causal connections.
Causal connections are the external things, the circumstances that even let you encounter this teaching and have the chance to practice it.
And the source suggests we might actually be better off now regarding those connections. That seems surprising.
It does seem that way. The point is, back then, getting access to complete scriptures or hearing lectures, that was tough. Now, we have things like collected editions of sutras. The teachings. Ouyi is mentioned for the immense Life Sutra, plus recordings, online resources.
Access is easier.
Much easier. The teaching is more accessible. The challenge today, the commentary suggests, isn't usually the lack of opportunity, causal connections, but often the lack of those first two. The good roots to believe it, and the blessings, the deep sincerity to actually vow and do it.
Right, back to that difficult to believe aspect again. Okay, so what is the main practice?
The core. The core practice is reciting the Buddha's name, holding fast to the name. But, and this is crucial, the teachings immediately jump in to say it's not just mouthing the word Amitabha.
Not just chanting mindlessly.
Exactly. Not empty recitation. The real meaning, as it's explained, is oral recitation with mental adherence. Your mouth says the name, but your mind, your heart has to follow it.
Mental adherence. What does that actually mean? How do you adhere to Amitabha?
It means aligning your heart, your actions, your whole being with Amitabha Buddha himself.
How? How do you do that? Align with the Buddha.
The foundation given is Amitabha's 48 vows. The source really hammers this home. We have to try and make Amitabha's vows our own vows.
Hosambog, make his vows my vows.
Yes, that's the core of correspondence. When your heart, your vows, your understanding, and your practice line up with Amitabha's, that's what true recitation is doing. Every Amitabha becomes a check-in. Am I aligning with his wish to save all beings?
Wow, okay. That gives recitation a whole different weight. So, practically, how do you work on this day to day?
The source offers different levels. Ideally, if you can, reciting the entire immense Life Sutra daily is recommended. But practically,
For most people.
a morning and evening routine is suggested. Morning class. Focus on reciting Chapter 6 of the immense Life Sutra, the 48 vows. Really absorb them. Make them your own aspiration.
Okay, reaffirm the vows in the morning.
And evening class. Cause and effect. Using those teachings to guide how you live your day.
And what about people who are just incredibly busy?
There's a specific method mentioned for them. The 10 recitation method.
10 recitation.
Yeah, just reciting Amitabha 10 times in a row, clearly and sincerely. And you do this 9 times spread throughout the day. The source points out each session takes maybe only a minute.
A minute 9 times a day, that seems very doable.
Very accessible, but it keeps the connection frequent.
But even with simple recitation like that, it sounds like understanding the sutras, the teachings, is still really important.
Absolutely vital. The model is read or listen. Understand, practice. You need to keep reciting the name, yes, but also keep hearing or reading the sutras and explanations. Why? Because you need to know what Amitabha actually taught, what his vows mean, so you can use that knowledge to constantly check and correct your own thoughts, intentions, and actions.
Right. If you don't know the standard, you can't align with it.
Exactly. Your practice won't be truly in sync, won't have that mental adherence otherwise.
Now, the commentary also mentions different levels of holding the name. Can you break those down?
Sure. It talks about 2 main levels. First is conceptual holding. This is basically practicing with your mind focused on just trying to suppress the noise, the afflictions, the monkey mind, like holding down weeds with a stone.
You're not pulling them out, just keeping them down.
Right. You're managing them. This level, the source says, is attainable by ordinary folks. And crucially, it's enough for rebirth. To go deeper from here, you need to start letting go of self-attachment.
Okay, conceptual holding. And the other level.
That's principle holding. This is much deeper. It comes from a profound insight into the nature of reality, the idea that mind is Buddha. Mind creates Buddha. Practice isn't separate from life. Everything becomes the practice. You reach a state where mind and environment are seen as one. This requires breaking attachment not just to self, but to phenomena, to concepts themselves.
That sounds very advanced. Do you need to get there to be reborn in the Pure Land?
And this is such an important point of reassurance in these teachings. No, you don't. The goal for most practitioners, the achievable aim that is sufficient for rebirth in the basic level of the Pure Land, the common abode, is called continuity of effort.
Continuity of effort, what does that mean?
It means you've practiced enough that you can reliably suppress the afflictions and wandering thoughts when you need to. You haven't cut them off at the root, maybe, but you have them under control. They don't overwhelm you, especially at the crucial moment.
Just suppressing them is enough. That seems almost too good to be true compared to other paths.
That's the promise. The source is explicit.
Yeah.
Getting to those higher levels of one-mindedness, Purādi, leads to higher grades of rebirth within the Pure Land, sure, but they require cutting off afflictions or attachments, and they are not required for getting your foot in the door, so to speak. So the message is, don't get stressed about reaching ultimate one-mindedness now. Focus on achieving that continuity of effort, suppress the negativity, and gain rebirth. Amitabha's power takes over once you arrive, ensuring rapid progress then.
That's a huge relief, actually. So when the teachings talk about having Buddha in your heart, it's not just like picturing Buddha.
Yeah, much, much deeper than just visualization. It means your heart is genuinely filled with the Buddha's heart, compassion, the Buddha's vows, aspirations, and the Buddha's practice conduct. You've taken these on as your own operating system, basically.
Your own guiding principles.
Yes. And when your mind is truly aligned like that, the afflictions you are fighting, they just naturally calm down. They don't have the same grip.
Okay, so how do we cultivate that kind of heart? The source mentions the 3 minds from the Contemplation Sutra, as explained by Master Ouyi.
Exactly. These are presented as the core inner qualities you need to develop. First is the true, sincere mind, the absolute bedrock. Utter sincerity, honesty, genuineness in everything. It's the opposite of the usual insincere, calculating mind we often operate with. It's the mind of the Buddhas.
Total sincerity. Got it. What's second?
The second is the profound mind. This is how that sincere mind benefits yourself. It involves cultivating 2 key qualities: a pure mind, free from defilement, and an equal mind, seeing all beings and phenomena without bias.
Purity and equality.
Right. The source says achieving this inner state is the highest form of self-enjoyment, real peace.
Okay. Sincerity, purity, equality. And the third mind.
The third is the mind of dedication and vows. This is how the sincere mind benefits others. It manifests as great compassion. But it's not just any compassion. It flows from that purity and equality. So it's impartial, non-discriminating, wanting to help everyone without attachment.
So developing these 3, sincerity, inner purity, equality, and outward compassion, this is the internal work that goes hand in hand with reciting the name.
Precisely. The teachings say you should constantly use these 3 minds like a checklist. Look at your thoughts, your words, your actions. Do they match up? Are you being sincere? Is your mind pure and equal? Are you acting with genuine compassion? It's an ongoing calibration.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk payoff. Why put in all this effort? What are the actual benefits that the Buddha himself apparently saw? The source seems quite specific.
Oh, extremely specific. And the benefits are described as, well, staggering. Benefit number 1, transcending the 6 realms of samsara entirely in this very lifetime.
Wow.
This is called horizontal transcendence.
Yeah.
Think of it like instead of climbing a huge ladder rung by rung over countless lives, you take a sideways leap completely out of the system once you're reborn in the Pure Land.
A shortcut out of samsara.
A profound one. And it's contrasted with other paths where you generally have to eliminate afflictions completely first, which takes, ages.
Okay, that's huge. What else?
Second, once you get to the Pure Land, you achieve round perfection.
Yeah.
This means you're guaranteed not to fall back, and you're set up to attain Buddhahood in just 1 lifetime there.
1 lifetime. How?
Because you don't have to plod through all the conventional 41 stages of bodhisattva development one by one. Amitabha's vow power kind of boosts you, accelerates the process incredibly once you arrive.
Buddhahood in 1 lifetime. And is it faster there? The source mentions speed.
Yes, benefit number 3. The sheer speed. The path to Buddhahood in the Pure Land is described as potentially taking only 3 or 4 kalpas.
Kalpas. Those are long, right? But how long compared to other paths?
Well, the comparison given is with an Asankhya kalpa, and the commentary tries to give a sense of scale for that. It involves multiplying 10,000 by itself over and over, then using units like trillion.
Okay, basically an unimaginably long time.
Exactly. It's a number so vast, it's almost meaningless to us. The point isn't the math, it's the mind-blowing contrast. 3 or 4 kalpas in the Pure Land versus that. It's practically instantaneous in comparison.
Point definitely taken. Mind-bogglingly faster.
Right. And this is why it's so significant when the text highlights Buddha Shakyamuni himself, saying, I see this benefit.
Ah, the Buddha's own testimony.
Yes. And the teaching emphasizes, This isn't just him saying, oh, this is a good path. It's presented as his direct, enlightened observation. With his perfect vision, his 5 types of eyes, he sees this is real, this benefit is achievable, this path works. He's vouching for it based on his own awakened perspective.
That's incredibly powerful validation. So the source really frames this teaching as unique.
Absolutely. It's described using superlatives, the most simple, easy, direct, fast, and complete method. There's a phrase used. It horizontally encompasses the 8 teachings, vertically penetrates the 5 periods.
Meaning
It somehow contains the essence of everything the Buddha taught, across all the different styles and time periods of his teaching, including things like Zen and complex philosophies. It gets to the heart of it all.
And we see highly accomplished beings choosing this path.
We do. The prime examples cited are the great bodhisattvas, Manjusri and Samantabhadra. At the very end of the massive, profound Flower Adornment Sutra, what do? They make vows to be reborn in Amitabha's Pure Land.
Wow. If it's good enough for them.
Right. It shows its supreme importance.
Right.
But then, on the other end of the spectrum, the source also gives examples of people who committed really serious negative actions.
Oh.
But if they encounter this specific teaching, maybe even right at the end of their life, and they generate genuine faith and recite the name sincerely, they can still be reborn there, assuming they had some underlying positive connection, of course.
So it spans the highest bodhisattvas down to, well, almost anyone with the right conditions at the end. That's incredibly inclusive.
That's exactly how it's presented. And this reliability is backed up by citing famous masters from other Buddhist schools, like Venerable Yuanying, the Tiantai Master Zizi, the Chan Master Youngming Yanshu, Zen Master Che Wu.
What about them?
These were giants in their own fields, masters of doctrine or meditation. Yet often later in their lives, they turned their focus to Pure Land practice and recommended it.
Like that story about Venerable Yuanying's disciple you mentioned.
Yeah, Mr. Zhang, the layman. He'd practiced Zen and esoteric methods for years, was quite elderly, in his 80s, but then he fully switched to Pure Land, reciting Amitabha's name 30,000 times a day while walking 30,000 steps.
That's dedication.
It is. And the story highlights how this sincere, focused practice not only helped him spiritually, but apparently improved his physical health and mental clarity too, even starting so late in life. It shows tangible results.
That really highlights the source's point about simple sincerity being more effective than, say, intellectual complexity that misses the mark.
Absolutely. It explicitly contrasts the clever scholars or eloquent Zen practitioners, people with lots of knowledge or meditative experiences who sometimes just can't grasp this or doubt it, with the simple, uneducated villagers who just do it. They achieve rebirth because they're honest, they don't get tangled in doubts, they just sincerely recite the name.
And their simple practice is enough.
The source suggests their simplicity and sincerity naturally contain all the essential elements. They might not be able to explain the deep principles, but their practice subtly aligns with the path, connects with the Buddha's wisdom, without needing all the analysis.
There's something profound in that kind of trust and simplicity. Did Master Ouyi give any advice on how we should approach this teaching, given these different aspects?
Yes, very helpful advice. He basically says, don't look at it as too hard, or you'll get discouraged. Don't look at it as too easy, or you'll become careless and complacent. Don't dismiss it as too shallow, or you'll hold it in contempt. But also, don't see it as so incredibly deep and mysterious that you feel afraid or think, that's not for me.
So what's the right attitude?
He sums it up as, approach it with respect, with a pure mind, and with a normal, ordinary mind. Just be sincere, respectful, clear-hearted, and approach it without making it overly complicated or dramatic.
Respect, purity, normality. Okay. So wrapping up this deep dive, we've covered a lot. The really compelling reasons for wanting rebirth in the Pure Land, especially given the challenges here in Samsaka.
Right.
We looked at those crucial conditions, the deep good roots, blessings, and causal connections, and the core practice. Reciting the name, yes, but with that vital mental adherence, aligning our heart, vows, and actions with Amitabha's.
Aiming for that achievable goal of continuity of effort.
Exactly, knowing that suppressing afflictions is enough to get reborn, and then the incredible benefits, jumping out of samsara, the super fast track to Buddhahood, all validated by Shakyamuni Buddha himself saying, I see this benefit.
And these teachings really lay out a choice, don't they? Especially with the Buddha's own testimony. Here's a path presented as available, relatively simple in its core practice, even if hard to fully believe initially, and incredibly effective.
Yeah.
So the implication is, if you hear this, understand the benefits testified to by the Buddha and don't take it up.
Yeah.
Well, the source presents that as a potentially huge missed opportunity for liberation.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, drawing from all this. If this path works for the highest bodhisattvas, and it works for simple, sincere villagers and great masters from other traditions turn to it, what's the real roadblock for us, listening right now? Is the path itself the issue? Or is it something in us, maybe a lack of that deep sincerity, maybe we're too caught up in our own ideas, or maybe just finding it hard to fully trust something so direct? Something to definitely ponder.